But recently, as we've had to navigate this coronavirus crisis, I find myself getting tired of watching the news because it seems that the sources that once seemed to be so reliable have in this crisis proven to become unreliable. After a few months of coverage on the crisis, the experts that were once so certain now seem to be uncertain about everything. Every day, the recommendations from health professionals seem to change. Every day, it seems that the new news anchors have a new opinion or a new hotspot or a new person or group of people to blame for the condition that the country finds itself in. Every day, the stock market seems to fluctuate because the future of our national economy seems to be up in the air. And if you're unfortunate enough to get caught watching a briefing from the White House, you have no choice but to leave sad and confused, because it seems that even the people who are in charge of what we're supposed to do can't come into agreement on what we're supposed to do. And where I used to love watching the news, I now find myself not even wanting to see or hear it, because I used to gain comfort and clarity from the information on the news. But now I find myself fighting frustration and trying to maintain my emotional balance, because now all the news does is remind me that things around me are out of control and there's nothing that I can do about it. And you might not be with me yet, but I don't care if it's this coronavirus, COVID-19, or your inability to pay your bills, or the reality that you're crumbling under the weight of other people's expectations, or the fact that you're sitting here or wherever you are smiling on the outside, but on the inside you've got depression and loneliness and anxiety and stress and pain and pressure. And no matter how hard you try, you can't pray it away, you can't fast it away, you can't shout it away, you can't drink it away, you can't smoke it away, you can't sex it away, because sooner or later life has a way of showing you that you are not in control. And I know that society has attempted to tell us that we are the masters of our own fates and that we are the captains of our own soul. But the reality is, God says that all you got to do is look around you and see the crisis that is around you, and you'll have to admit that you are not in control. And I know that we don't like it. It's not a reality that we want to accept, because our flesh has a natural tendency to rebel against God's authority. And it's not always overt rebellion that openly defies God. But more often than not, this rebellion is a passive rebellion that claims to love God and be submitted to Him. But at the same time, it attempts to hold on to the illusion that we're actually in charge and have the ability to exercise control over our lives. And because God loves us and is committed to our growth as a people, He will not allow us to hold on to that fleshly fallacy. But instead, God allows crisis to invade our space so that we and the world around us can be reminded that we are not in control. But even though we're not in control of our lives, that should not cause us as believers to lose our mind and give in to fear in the midst of our crises. As a matter of fact, once we realize that we are not in control of our lives, we are called by God to rest in the reality that even though we lack the ability to control our circumstance, we serve a God who loves us and is absolutely positively in control. Even in the midst of times like these, the world may be going crazy, but God is seated on the throne and He's in His right mind. Politicians, news anchors, social media influencers, and other experts may be throwing up their hands in despair, but God is above the heavens and He is unbothered as He oversees the affairs of men. You don't get it yet. CEOs might be sweating while they're waiting on bailout money. Doctors may be overwhelmed as they try to manage a pandemic without adequate medical equipment and protective gear. Mothers and fathers may be concerned about where help is going to come from. Working people may be concerned about their lost wages and their benefits. But God isn't pacing back and forth in the situation room of heaven, talking with the angels, trying to figure out what He's going to do. But our foreparents declared that even in the midst of the crises of life, God sits up high, God help me, and He looks down low. And even in the middle of a crisis like Corona, God is not tripping, God is not scared, God is not anxious, and God is not overwhelmed. And the people of God should be able to have confidence in the crises of life, because no matter how crazy the crisis may be, our God and our Christ is in control.